Hi everyone, my name is Anna Rose Rowley, and I look at addressing and preventing bullying. So first, why bullying? Nearly every student has either witnessed, experienced, or engaged in bullying at some point within their education. Bullying includes behaviors that are intended to cause social, physical, emotional, sexual, or property damage, and because this definition is so broad, many actions qualify as bullying, which means incidents can often go overlooked or unreported, and we never want students to feel unsafe at school or online. Students who are bullied often face mental health and behavioral challenges and may turn to risky behaviors as coping mechanisms such as smoking or substance abuse. And what's important to remember is that all students are at risk of bullying and cyberbullying, but rates are higher among female students, LGBTQ+ students, and middle schoolers, as these groups often have a strong desire for peer acceptance. So some bullying prevention efforts include this targeted intervention, which is a 3-tiered system in which intensive social skills training and emotional regulation for youth at risk of becoming involved in bullying takes place. So it starts with universal social emotional learning lessons and climate building activities, but these reach only about 80% of our students, and just some need more. So the next 15% receive targeted supports such as assertiveness training, coping strategies, and behavior intervention plans. And then we have this final 5%, which require intensive intervention. But overall, the goal is that through early identification and graduated supports, students at high risk of involvement in bullying will decrease. The second model is an authoritative school climate approach, which works to prevent bullying by instilling fair, consistent discipline techniques with strong, supportive teacher-student relationships, because research shows that this leads to less bullying, less aggression, and a more positive climate. And this prevention operates on the idea that if students' well-being is at the center, positive student interactions and student engagement and learning are sure to take place, which reduces the possibility for students' misbehavior or aggression, such as bullying. And then next is the prevention called the friendly school. So using a whole school approach, students work to develop healthy habits of mind by engaging in a combination of whole school activities to build a positive culture, classroom activities to teach students how to respond to bullying, and early intervention for students involved in bullying. And by using this friendly schools prevention model, there has been decreased bullying and cyberbullying by 20 to 30%. And the goal is that students will focus on positive relationships as they believe that the person they confide in will help them and take action. So we also have the Upright program, which focuses on building a school culture that supports mental well-being by strengthening students' resilience. Research shows that resilience helps students understand, withstand, and respond to bullying and cyberbullying. So through 18 to 24 lessons that focus on mindfulness, coping, self-efficacy, and social-emotional skills, students engage in opening questions to spark their interest, modeling through stories and hands-on videos. They have practice through role-playing, and they have opportunities to apply the skills outside of the classroom, so that the goal is that it prepares students to tackle tough situations that they will inevitably face, such as bullying. We also have the life education prevention, which works to address loneliness, lack of connection, and mental health, as they will make students more vulnerable to being bullied or engage in bullying. So a few categories that the model works to teach our students to understand themselves, cherish life, respect others, and realizing their potential. And this can be done through peer support systems in which older or more socially adept students support younger or more isolated peers, through inclusive activities in clubs that promote feelings of acceptance, and then also by teachers modeling positive behaviors such as active listening, empathy, respectful communication to create supportive classroom environments. So my first interview was with my assistant principal, and she emphasized that the school's foundation and overall philosophy are the strongest tools for prevention. So with social emotional learning, restorative practices, and a small school environment, issues are addressed early before they can escalate. A major strength of this approach is the strong relationships between students and staff. Because teachers know students well, they can spot concerns quickly, and students also kind of become like an open book, and they will even tell on their closest friends in times of bullying or harmful actions occurring. However, this small size can create sibling-like dynamics, so close relationships can also lead to conflict with less space to walk away because we are so small. And some students enroll after being heavily bullied elsewhere, so when they finally feel that they can be themselves, this kind of creates some social friction, especially for students who struggle with social cues. But overall, her biggest area of improvement is in parental clarity. So many parents don't believe that their child can engage in these harmful behaviors. So when she does have to reach out about their student engaging in bullying, it makes taking accountability and instilling consequences a lot more challenging. So next I interviewed our school social worker, who highlighted our restorative practices like community circles, communication skills, trauma-informed approaches. And these circles give students and teachers regular check-ins, and because groups stay consistent, students feel comfortable sharing both strengths and challenges. She noted that we intentionally celebrate shared experiences and differences to create a sense of family, so students find their tribe, which is so powerful. But it also means that students who sometimes come in angry or more guarded struggle to break into these groups. And one of the most significant challenges is that there's this inconsistent teacher buy-in. So some teachers fully engage with these restorative practices, while others participate more minimally and kind of just go through the motions and check it off their to-do list. She would like to see improvement in being able to push into classrooms herself. So right now she mostly sees the same students who seek her out, but by pushing into advisories or classes, she could reach all students and teach them skills about how to understand themselves, their role in the community, and how their actions impact others. Lastly, I interviewed a classroom teacher who emphasized that the strongest prevention tool is the community that the school has built. So advisory groups stay together for 4 years, so their relationships are so close. Students are open with staff, teachers communicate constantly, often through WhatsApp, and then it monitors issues as students move from class to class. Some strengths are this individualized attention, that teachers recognize each student's unique strengths and challenges from the moment they enter the program. Students feel comfortable being themselves because they know staff support them. And then there's this team effort in that there's communication from the teacher to the advisor and then to the parent, which is backed by administration and counselors. However, this long-term closeness creates challenges. Sometimes friends teasing one another turns into bullying, and it's hard to identify when that line's been crossed. And then she said, we do weird well, and she means that students thrive here because they can be themselves, but many lack social skills because of their previous struggles. So it makes them hard to know when to say things, when not to, and that can look like bullying. So a change that she suggested was to use our time for our community circles and really focus on appropriate social skills to teach students how to communicate respectfully that will help them succeed outside of school. So that is my first recommendation, is to use our circles to more intentionally focus on social awareness and appropriate communication. So these discussions don't need to happen daily. Once a week or once every 2 weeks is fine, but focusing on kindness, inclusion, and the impacts of words helps students understand how their behaviors affect others. And to make this effective, staff needs training on recognizing bullying behaviors and on facilitating these restorative circles, such as using a talking piece, ensuring one speaker at a time. And then teachers must also be positive models for these behaviors so that students have something to look back on and they can see the skill in action. So this recommendation also aligns with the life education model, which emphasizes helping students develop real-world conflict resolution and communication skills. When all students participate in circles focused on healthy interactions, feelings of isolation decrease, and new connections form across diverse groups. And to measure the effectiveness, we can track improvements through climate surveys, teacher observations, and behavioral data. We can look for indicators such as increased feeling of safety and belonging, fewer negative comments, and improved peer interactions. My next recommendation is to look at the limited availability of our school counselors. So I recommend setting aside dedicated time for counselors and social workers to push into our classrooms and to teach social emotional lessons. So by creating a consistent schedule, counselors can provide whole group instruction in emotional regulation, communication, and interpersonal skills. And this helps students manage emotions that could lead to conflict, and it helps them recognize when they're being hurt or bullied. So this strategy needs collaboration from across the school, so teachers should support these sessions, share what content they're teaching, and help integrate these social emotional lessons into their classroom content. And the goal is to deliver structured social emotional learning and bullying prevention lessons regularly without replacing students' one-on-one support. So to achieve this goal, schools may need additional trained staff so that the selective interventions remain available for students who need them. Time is, of course, our biggest challenge. We want to protect instructional time, but we also want to acknowledge the importance of social emotional learning. We can measure the success in several ways. Maybe students report feeling safer in classrooms, hallways, transition times. There's an increased willingness to report bullying and trust adults. And maybe we see strong peer relationships and more positive interactions in our school. My third and final recommendation is to focus on improving communication with parents. So we want to create clear, consistent definitions to help parents recognize bullying, understand the school's response system, and know how to support their child at home. So a simple way to do this is by creating a one-page family-friendly handout outlining the definition of bullying, examples of it, school procedures, and how parents can help. This can include action steps, examples, guidance for supporting both students who bully and those who are bullied. And to make this work, we need administrative support in distributing materials and hosting sessions. Teachers can provide input about what they see their students need most. We also need staff training on how to communicate the sensitive topic of bullying with parents so that it stays supportive rather than confrontational. And then we can measure the effectiveness through parent surveys, showing improved understanding of what is and what's not bullying, fewer misunderstandings during parent meetings, and fewer instances of parents denying bullying concerns. So overall, to support positive school environment, everyone, teachers, counselors, parents can take action. We can have community circles that help students get to know each other, build social skills, and practice kindness, while teachers can model positive behavior. We can have social emotional learning push-ins. Counselors can teach skills like managing emotions and making good choices. We can have parental clarity, which makes sure parents understand what bullying is so they can help prevention at home. And then we can take action together. We can set aside time, schedule these activities consistently, and collaborate across teachers, counselors, and families. And when we all work together, students build stronger relationships, behavior improves, and the school becomes a safer, more supportive place. And these are my references. Thank you.